Well guys, we made it to an interesting spot here, and we're looking at the IZIP E3 Peak DS. Dual suspension, rear, front, 120 millimeters of travel. Interesting suspension design in the back, okay? So you can see there's like a bar here, and it looks like it's solid up to here, and there's even this like wishbone thing going on, and then there's a bar here, and then that pivot point, and I guess between here there's another bar. So the whole rear end goes up and down like that. It feels a little bit stiffer than some of the other full suspension bikes I've ridden, and I feel like this is a good candidate for cross-country riding. Again, it's not super long travel. Even the tires, these are 2.2 fat, and they're 27.5 in diameter. So 650Bs, a little bit more traditional. There is the IZIP E3 Peak Plus this year that has plus size tires, 2.8 thickness, and you know, that's going to give you a little bit more traction, maybe a little bit squishier. They run on lower PSI. This one's like 30 to 50. So I feel like, yeah, a good, you know, cross country. Even the slack angle on this fork, I think it's maybe not quite as extreme. I've measured that, I've recorded it back at the site. I'm just trying to give you an understanding for how this bike feels. It's interesting. You know, I love that they've upgraded to the Bosch mid-drive system for the new model. The older ones used Trans-X, which didn't have shift sensing, and it just wasn't as refined. Like this one measures your rear wheel speed, pedal cadence, and pedal torque 1,000 times per second. Bosch does a great job. They put their systems onto a whole range of e-bikes. So to see IZIP picking them up, I feel like it raises the quality a little bit. And they've got the CX drive, which is a 75 Newton meters of torque versus 63 or 50 on the performance and active lines respectively. And this one doesn't really have a lot of plastic casing around it, so it's just a little bit sleeker. And you can see that it's angled a little bit, so it fits nicely at that bottom bracket section. It does hang a little bit in the rear, kind of hangs down. Just again, the suspension design here is unique, and they've raised the chain with like kind of a pulley wheel and then maybe a guide on top. And I think that would probably isolate kickback, and it would keep from phantom shifting. So, you know, if there's flex going on the rear part of the frame, depending on what gear you're on, again, because the Bosch system relies on a much smaller, this is 18-tooth chainring, it rotates a lot faster, like 2 revolutions for every single crank arm revolution. It's very responsive, it's quick, but it's just not as big, and you really only get a 1x setup. So at least you got 11 sprockets in the rear. This is 11 to 42 teeth, SRAM NX. I was trying to figure out where this fits on the SRAM component level, and someone was saying, yeah, maybe it's just below the X1, or the XX1 might be a couple steps above that. SRAM does have like an e-bike specific derailleur and cog set out there, and this one, you know, maybe that's part of that, the NX. So I don't know, it was interesting to see. Looks like a good setup, and the jumps aren't quite as extreme as like the 8-speed that I've seen elsewhere. See the shifter mechanism up here, trigger shifter is pretty easy to reach, but it's not a two-way action, it's just forward to shift, versus some of the Shimano ones, the Dynasys. I was looking at that on the Shimano setup before. We've got flat locking grips here, and then these nice SRAM guide hydraulic disc brakes with finger adjustable levers. Like, I really appreciate that. It's nice to be able to dial that in on the go, or if you're someone with shorter fingers, maybe you like to use just one finger to brake, or you've got gloves or something like that. This frame does come in 2 different sizes. We're looking at the 19-inch, it's the large, whereas when I reviewed the Peak Plus, that one was a 17. So I've measured the geometry, the reach, and everything. This one doesn't have quite as extreme an angle on the top tube, so standover height is raised a little bit, but that might stiffen it up. Of course, it makes room for this rear suspension design too. Then I feel like, you know, it's been pretty stiff. I don't know what size these are, but they almost look like 15 millimeter. Just like up here, we got a 15 millimeter through axle. This is pretty standard, 100 millimeter width. At the back, 142 by 12 millimeter through axles. So again, not the plus size, doesn't have boost, doesn't need it. 14 gauge spokes on both wheels, quick release, easy to service, take it into a shop, no problem. And then down here we got a nice rubber slap guard. The other unique thing about this, as I was, exploring and recording all the stats, it looks like the front brake rotor is 200 millimeters instead of 203. And then in the rear, we've got 180. So those are both very capable, extra good stopping power, hydraulic disc brakes. It's great. It's just, 200 versus 203, kind of unique. And then coming back to just the frame, the colors here, it's sort of this metallic dark gray with glossy, like high visibility yellow and black. And then we've got this fork that's white. So I was trying to figure that out, and it's like maybe they ordered some forks before they had decided on the frame or something, and they've mixed in some white accents. But I preferred the all black look of the Peak Plus. I realize this is just like a qualitative assessment, just kind of sharing my thoughts here with you. And sorry for the noise. Again, this is the dump, so we've got people coming in and out, and I thought this was so cool. I wanted to ride up there, but it's gated off. So I've been riding around here instead, and I was gonna take you back that way to get some motor feedback, some sounds and stuff. Air forks, 120 millimeters, compression adjust, rebound down there at the bottom, and same with the RockShox Monarch, and it's got this clicker here that goes 3 different positions, as well as a little dial there for rebound. Nice setup all the way around, and I really like the tubing on the frame. You see that there's a tapered head tube, so depending on the slack angle, if you wanted, you could put sort of an offset headset here and potentially change the angle a little bit. But look at this, hydroformed inset for the battery, and then this nice cup that just surrounds a little bit. This isn't quite as discreet as the Broza motor battery system, but it's a little bit easier to get on and off the frame than that. So it's a trade-off, and they're running with the Bosch Power Pack 400, 36 volt, 11 amp hour versus, the new one is 500 watt hour, a little bit bigger, higher capacity, but that raises the price. Speaking of price, this is, one of the more expensive bikes in the IZIP line, and I think even over the past several years, we're looking at $41.99. So you're paying a lot for the higher end shifters, component groups, for the Bosch drive system, for the brakes, for the 2 frame sizes, for the suspension, and that makes sense. Just the overall look of this with the colors is like, it's too bad it doesn't match a little bit nicer. Come over to this side, you can see the Bosch branding and a little bit more plastic here, but still it's kind of minimal. They do have this really great skid plate on the bottom. It's vented. Looks like it'd take really good care of it. It's aluminum alloy, so it's gonna, take a hit if you were going on a trail, maybe going off something and ended up getting hung up on a guardrail like here. You can see, I like that the wires are internally routed. On the Peak Plus, a lot of them are tacked on. I like the way this looks, but in terms of maintenance and service, it might be a little bit more tricky to deal with over time. And then, you can see that the seat post, the tube, it's got that quick release collar. It's a little bit higher. This is 31.6 millimeter post diameter. I probably wouldn't swap it with like a suspension seat post. It's a full suspension bike. You don't need to do that, but this is a little bit thicker, maybe a little bit stronger than 27.2 millimeters standard. Oh, and then this is a Class 1 electric bike, so it's permissible on the highest number of trails, especially here in California where they have the e-bike legislation being put in. Let me see if I can find it. There's usually like a little marker on the frame, and this might be like one of their first production bikes, so it might not have it, but you see this at the expos. Again, this is a demo bike, so it's running really well, but it's been used a little bit. Oh, and I wanted to talk about the charger. So the Bosch battery pack is really cool. You can charge it on or off the bike. A lot of times I'll just leave it on the bike because I store mine inside, keep it nice and clean. Look at this rubber plug is really nice. It seats in there pretty securely, and then it's gonna keep water and other things out. Try not to lose it because there's no like tab for this to hang on to. I suppose you could get a replacement or something. All of the IZIP bikes seem to be using it this year. And I like it. It's a good system. It's easy to put in. It's not gonna require a lot of screwing around. And then the battery pack's got a little LED indicator on the side so you can see how full it is, even if it's not on the frame. I don't have the key, but if I did, you could take it off and there is enough clearance here. The battery kind of pops up instead of sliding to the side like some of the other ones. It's very compact. It's only 5.4 pounds. So if you wanted to upgrade to that 500 watt-hour pack I was talking about, that one's only 5.8 pounds, so it's really not that much heavier. It's just a matter of price and stuff, and I think they were trying to keep the price down. You're still going to get great distance with this, and there is sort of a dynamic range readout that we're going to check out later. But it's just cool to see. And the charger, also I don't have that with me, but it's a 4 amp charger. A lot of these e-bikes only have 2 amp chargers, so they take a lot longer to fill your battery. And it's really not even that big or heavy. It's like 1.7 pounds, pretty compact. Bosch has just done a great job. It's the same charger for all their other bikes. You might be able to see some pictures in other reviews I've done, but it's great. You know, I feel like that's a good system. And you know, you kind of see what you get here. You can see the battery, but it's easier to work with and easier to upgrade than some of the really custom built-in batteries and stuff like that. And it does match. You know, there's no graphics or logos or anything on this. It's just standard black. Okay, so up here at the display, let's see if this one is, yep, it's tacked on. The display is removable, but they also have this set screw. And remember, this is a demo bike, so I think they've got the set screw secured because they don't want people to take it off at some of the e-bike expos and stuff, and I get that. It does swivel forward and back, so you can adjust for glare if you want to. And then there's this little 5-volt USB, micro USB port on the side. So if you're running Strava, or maybe you've got an MP3 player or some lights or something, some of the shops can actually wire lights in, and you could mount those on your bike and add something, and that way you don't have to charge them separately or forget to turn them off. It's a pretty cool system that way, but for a full suspension mountain bike, I mean, I don't know how much people would be riding in the dark. Just nice to know those options. And again, e-bike shops, IZIP has a pretty good network of dealers in the US especially that can help you get set up. Maybe you can try the different sizes and stuff. They'll help to honor the warranty, because this does come with a 2-year comprehensive warranty, as well as, I believe, lifetime on the frame. And I don't want to miss these pedals. Check these out. Really big, oversized aluminum alloy with adjustable set screws. So these pins can be sunk in or raised up depending on how much traction. Just be careful, because, you know, if you slip off, you're going to scrape your shin like I've done and end up with some scars and stuff over time. Okay, so coming back up here, I think I'm just going to jump into the display, press that power button, comes to life very quickly. 5 bars, little infographic up there, 20% increments, speed in miles per hour, and then down here we've got a bunch of trip readouts. So right now we're in odometer. If I press this I button here or here, it's going to cycle through to trip distance, clock, max speed, average speed, trip time, range. This is what I was talking about. So even though the battery isn't super precise, there's no percentage readout, range helps to give you some better feedback, more detailed. We go up to Eco, that's the lowest level of assist, and it's saying 57 miles. This battery's not even full. So 57 miles, that's pretty good, but you really aren't getting that much help. I'd say it sort of takes off the weight of this bike, you know, it almost makes it more like, oh, this is a regular feeling bike that's only 25 pounds instead of 51.2 pounds. By the way, I was really surprised. This is slightly lighter than the E3 Peak Plus, the hardtail from IZIP. And I guess it's just because that one has the plus size tires and the wider rims and stuff. But this one, you get full suspension, you know, air suspension. That's pretty cool. So coming back up here, if I arrow up to Tour, it drops way down to 29 miles, Sport, 22, and Turbo, 18. Probably going to do the review in turbo mode just so you can hear the motor. It's got a distinct kind of a whirring noise. You can see how quickly it responds, and then we can do some more fun riding, like climbing around and stuff. Here's a little light bulb button. That would activate lights if you paid your shop to wire them in for you. Otherwise, this display is sort of always backlit, and it's got this like faint glow, and then the reset button to clear things out. I think that's about it. And I believe, you know, now that we're up in one of the levels of assist, we've got this walk mode button here, and if you hold that down, might not be working, but I was told that for 2017 Bosch was going to enable walk mode on some of their systems. So perhaps this being more of a demo bike and one of the first into the US, maybe that's not enabled yet, but it's kind of nice to have. Again, you're pushing it up some sort of steep embankment and you don't want to have to push all that weight yourself. That walk mode's kind of a cool feature. Okay, I think I'm gonna grab the bike, maybe cruise out that way, just on pavement, so you can get a feel for how the motor responds. Check it out. It's such a beautiful day out here. I'm in Southern California at the IZIP headquarters, and it's just been raining so much here. Normally this would all be kind of brown and stuff. Private property. Oh boy. Using that 200 millimeter disc brake, I'm having to kind of be easy because I think I could pretty easily flip this. Pretty stable here. Ride with no hands pretty well. There's not too much slack. It's not like a downhill geometry. And now I'm going to shift through a little bit. That worked pretty well. I really wasn't easing off to do that. I was trying to activate a shift sensing. It's not perfect, you know, you're still a little bit of mashing that happens when you shift like that, but it's better than the other systems that don't even try. And then if you ease off a little bit while you're shifting, the torque sensor will notice and you won't get quite so much banging. Okay guys, I thought we'd start out just looking down at the cog set, shifting through some of those gears. I noticed that the hub on this is really tight. It's like, you know, it's a lot more clicks, so you can jump into the gears a little bit faster. There isn't that delay when you're pedaling. Anyway, yeah, listen for that shift detection and just, you know, check out the rear suspension too. Pretty easy to max out that 20 mile per hour top speed, especially in those higher gears. I was like, okay, I'm there. It seems like you could pedal a lot faster than 20 miles per hour, especially going downhill, and the motor's not going to create any drag or anything in that case. It's just going to kind of freewheel. This should be a good view of that chain guide. Sort of lifts the chain, clears maybe a little bit of debris, but keeps it, most importantly, from bouncing off track. And this does have narrow wide teeth on that first sprocket, and then on that 18 tooth main chainring, also narrow wide, so you're not going to get the chain slip, especially if you're bouncing around going over bumps. Well guys, that's the IZIP E3 Peak DS. For the full write-up on this with more specs and details, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Of course, as always, have fun out there, and feel free to chime in if you feel like there's something that should be expanded upon or maybe corrected. I do my best to get all the details, but I appreciate your input. See you next time.